Of Jazz Video Guy Live. Today's a special day for me because one of the great things about doing this show is that I get to connect with a lot of my friends from the past that I really don't see that much. I live in the Sonoran Desert. There aren't a hell of a lot of jazz musicians out here. There's a few. There's a great jazz education program, the Tucson Jazz Institute, and we occasionally get musicians passing through here. But so this Jazz Video Guy Live thing is about me reconnecting with people that I dig and I care about. And one of those people is today's guest, Benny Green. So a little introduction here, a little music, and then we will get back to Benny.
About choosing these people, but everybody you've selected is someone that has great heart, and Benny Green certainly does. Benny has great heart and humility, and he's a wonderful piano player. I actually heard him yesterday. We were tuned into Sirius XM, and they presented a reprise of a performance that he made at Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola. And I was just marveling at his facility, and his facility, which is so wonderful, brought to mind the fact that he was a bit of a protege of Oscar Peterson. And you know, you could certainly see why Oscar Peterson loved him so much.
Benny Green, hello.
Greetings. How you doing, good sir?
I am excellent today. Benny is joining us from the People's Republic. How are things in Berkeley these days?
Considerably mellower than other parts of the world. Um, we all make sure that we say hello to each other on the street, which you don't always find in the big city. I don't know if it's like that across the bridge in San Francisco, but you know, anyone who knows the history of Berkeley knows that there's there's been a tumultuous history, but there's also been a history of a very strong community, and we're considered sort of one of the more liberal cities, whatever that even means these days, in the country. So all that to say, things are good here. Thanks for
Benny,
asking. And
I wanted to ask you, I have a photograph here of you. I guess it was taken at the 1975 Monterey Jazz Festival. You look to be about 14 or 15 years old.
15.
15. Were you a child prodigy?
I don't know that I was a prodigy, Brett, but I really loved playing from the beginning. We got a piano when I was 6. We got an upright piano. We still have the same instrument, speaking to you from our family home here. No, from the beginning of just my first times touching the instrument, I like to spend a lot of time with the piano. But as far as being a prodigy, I don't know about all that. Some of my friends who knew me from back then were very generously sort of talked me up a bit that I was playing a lot, but I think I was just I was enthusiastic. That's for darn sure.
Well, enthusiasm is a beautiful thing. When did you get into jazz? Was it your dad that introduced you to the music?
Oh yes, my father played the tenor saxophone. His name is Bertram Green. He's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he passed about 3 weeks short of his 80th birthday. 2008, and he played his horn around the house. He was really extremely fundamentally inspired by the great Lester Young, Prez, 80th. But he loved a lot of people, but people that came through that strain, like Dexter Gordon and Ward L. Gray. He took me to hear Dexter in person a few times.
Wow.
In the 70s. And he loved Sonny Rollins. He loved anyone who could play. And he liked some of the more, of course, he loved Hank Mobley. But yeah, so my father was listening to Charlie Parker and Thelonious Monk, Ray Charles records, and I was very fascinated with the music. My father saw that I was interested in the music and really encouraged me. He said, "I'll teach you about it." And as some friends and colleagues of mine know, the very introduction that my father gave me to the music was telling me that if you like these records we've been listening to, you should understand that this is black people's music, that they've created it. And he said, other people play the music, and even some people play it well. He said, white people play the music, and he said, most of the white people that can play are imitating the black people who invented the music. And that was the very first thing my father said. I'm barely changing a word. That was like as close to word for word as he put it that I can remember. And I'm so thankful that that's my foundation to the music, because music is about a feeling and it's an expression of life. And I think it's so important to respect, well, on so many levels, but fundamentally, as I see it, as a white person, of course, the reality that the music was developed very much as an expression of things that cannot be put into words, that a culture of people were going through and are going through. And I just feel like that's to be respected as we like dissect the language into math and ones and zeros. Is there's a heart inside of the music, and the feeling and the spirit of the blues is central to jazz. And so I could expound on that, of course, but the more I say, the sillier I sound. So the main point I want to make is that my father made sure that I understood that this music that I was becoming interested in as a child is in fact Black American music. He didn't even say that it's called jazz, Brett.
Okay, well, one of your teachers, we're going to look at a little video here and talk about. The man's name is Walter Bishop Jr.
Peace, Muhammad. Look at the tree. Yes. Wow. Wow.
How did you come to study with Bish?
Oh my goodness. Thank you for playing that. So good to see him.
Isn't it?
Karen.
I miss,
Yes, sir.
I miss Bish
as
so
do
much.
I think of him every day. I'm sure you do too, Brett. Well, I had been listening to Walter on records here at Berkeley. I think the first recording I heard was one that I lifted from my friend Jimmy Dright's father, Kenny Dorham, Into Something. Jackie McLean, Bish, Leroy Vinegar, and Art Taylor recorded live in San Francisco. I want to say at the Jazz Workshop, perhaps. Pacific Jazz. So I used to listen to that record, and then there was a Jackie McLean album on the Blue Note label I had called Capuchin Swing.
Oh, yeah.
With Blue Mitchell and Walter Bishop and Paul Chambers and Art Taylor. I later found out, as you're well aware, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners are aware, that Art Taylor and Bish grew up together, Sugar Hill, Harlem, with Sonny Rollins and Jackie McLean. So I was listening to those records, and I realized that Bish was alive, but he was not coming out to the Bay Area to perform at the time, late 70s, early 80s in particular, that I was becoming intrigued. Then, let's see, I heard him on records with Charlie Parker. It was a session with Miles Davis, Max Roach. I'm not sure if it's Teddy Kotick. If they KC Blues, and a later version of Star Eyes. And so this is someone, when I knew I was going to be moving back to New York, and I say back to New York because I was born there in 1963. My family moved into this house in Berkeley in 68. And I grew up here in Berkeley, like I was here throughout the 70s. Moved to New York in 1982. Bish is someone who I wanted to look up, Brett. And so I would check, you remember the listings in the Village Voice?
Oh, yeah.
Village, yeah. So you would get the Village Voice, and you had to pay for it back then. Was it 75 cents or something? And there would be a big spread, and sometimes two spreads. Gosh, there were so many jazz clubs at the time, and there were just a few big spreads in the paper just devoted to jazz clubs in New York. And so the first gig that I noticed listed that Bish was playing in, which I hurried up and got to, was with the Bill Hardman Junior Cook Quintet, with Paul Brown on bass, and Keith Copeland on the drums.
Wow,
And they were,
Keith.
yeah, Keith, yes, sir. And they were playing at the Jazz Forum at Broadway and Bleecker, Mark Morganelli's original venue. Now he has the lovely venue in Tarrytown, the same name, same spirit. And I went to hear Bish, and I just like got up my courage on the intermission. And man, before I get to that, I just want to say, like, actually getting to hear him in person after listening to those records, that, you know, that just the multi-dimensional just experience of like being in the room and hearing the music, and it's happening in the moment. That is contrasted with just hearing them in a record. It's like, it's so intense, like it's in color now. So that was something, just hearing a sound in the room. And so I spoke with him, and man, you remember his voice and his accent. I think to me, it's almost like it's some kind of a combination of like some West Indian elements, perhaps some things from his parents, and like whatever was like within the few blocks of his neighborhood growing up, and just this thing of his own. But the way he spoke was so cool. It didn't matter that I looked completely different from him. I was a little kid. I wanted to talk like him. And I was at that age of life where you're very impressionable. And so I was like immediately just entranced by the way he was speaking. And I was introducing myself and asking him if he was teaching, if I could take a lesson with him. And he had a business card, old school business card he gave me. He said to give him a call. He was nice as can be. You know Bish. I called him up, went for my first lesson, and I played best I could. I guess it was maybe a shallow interpretation, if you will, of Bish's trio arrangement of Don't Blame Me. It's a trio track on that Jack McLean album I mentioned, Computers to Swing. There's no horns on this track. And so I kind of played my version of that, and Bish really dug it. The statement that it makes, I understand. It wasn't about how well I did or didn't play. It was just the fact that I was like listening to his record, and I was very sincere about why I was coming to him for lessons. That I was really interested in his thing, what he does. I paid him for the lesson, and the end of my second lesson, when I went to pay him, he wouldn't take the money. He said, "Let's not keep it on this level." And I didn't know what he meant, but he refused the money. And as you perhaps observed, because I met you within a couple months of that, Brett, in Bish's apartment, number 33Q, Manhattan Plaza,
West,
right?
Yep, 400 West
Yes,
43rd
sir.
Street.
With his cats, Sasha and JJ.
Sasha and JJ, and that horribly broken down piano that could never seem to stay in tune.
But it had a vibe, though, right?
Yeah, it had a
full
vibe.
piano.
Let me play something. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Benny.
Please. No. I'm just rambling.
Okay.
I would love to hear some music.
Okay, let me play something that you wrote for Bish.
Thank you. Next piece we're going to play is one that I wrote and recorded 30 years ago when I was 4. And this is dedicated to my teacher.
Can you hear me there, Brett?
Father, the wonderful Walter Bishop Jr. And this is one of his nicknames. This piece is called Bish Bash. Hope you like it.
Can I respond to that?
Wait a second. Yeah, that was Bish Bash. And Ralph Moore, wonderful tenor player, says, I seem to remember maybe playing this tune with Benny at a gig at Fat Tuesdays way back in the day.
Most definitely. I wonder, hello, Ralph. How you doing, sir? Do you remember Clifford Jordan coming down to sound check that week?
Oh, boy. Yeah. I remember Fat Tuesdays. Fat Tuesdays. There's one gig I'll never forget. I saw Sonny Stitt's last New York gig. It was on Monk's, the day that Monk died, because there was a TV crew there to Art Blakey was being interviewed. And I'll tell you, man,
Art Blakey and Sonny Stitt were both at Fat Tuesdays?
Art Blakey was being interviewed for TV because Monk died that day. They just chose Fat Tuesday as the place to do it. But I sat right in front of Sonny Stitt, man. It was a master class in improvisation, the alto, the tenor. It was just unbelievable.
Wow.
Comment here from someone, Mythic Mesa, says that Bish returned to the scene in 1967, met him in a club in Manhasset in Long Island with Blue Mitchell and Frank Foster. One really great human being. And certainly I picked up on that. Bish had a very strong sense of humanity, really cared about people. And when you were Bish's friend, you were really his friend.
Well, quite honestly, Brett, I never saw him have a closer kinship with anyone than the way I saw him with you. And I actually saw you guys around each other a few times, at least once, if not twice, at the crib, at Bish's apartment, and once or twice in the clubs. And he spoke of you and when you'd be in town. But he really respected your work. And I was curious, if you don't mind my asking, just about how you and Bish had met, Brett.
Okay.
Brett.
Actually, it's an interesting story. In the, I guess it was 76, I think, 75 or 76, a friend of mine who was a TV talk show in New York City at the time, named Bill Boggs, he would have had a beautiful crib on Central Park South. And,
I was there with Bish and Rufus Reed.
Okay, there you
Bill
go.
Boggs' apartment. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
Yeah.
that's where I first met Bish. So Bish came to one of those parties. So Bish played, and then there were all these celebrities there, and I totally ignored the celebrities, and I hung out with Bish, and we just connected, and that was it. I mean, Bish helped me get into the jazz world. Actually, the first published thing I ever did was in February of 1977, an article about Walter Bishop Jr. And that was my entry into jazz journalism. And then what Bish would do, which was really amazing, because I was a kid when I got into the music, then I came to New York. Bish took me to the kitchen of the Vanguard, and I saw what that was like, what was happening there in terms of how the musicians took care of each other, the humor and all that stuff. And then he would introduce me to people. Like he introduced me to Red Garland after a set. He introduced me to Joe Henderson. And then to finish this little thing off, I guess it was like, 78 or 79, Herbie Hancock's VSOP band played at a Philharmonic Hall. And it was Freddie and Wayne and Ron and Tony and Herbie.
Can I tell you something really quick?
Let me finish this. Let me just finish this one time. I'll make it quick.
VSOP. I'll come back to it.
So he brought me backstage. I ended up hanging out with Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter. Yeah. That was pretty intense. What were you going to say about VSOP?
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. Well, the record VSOP Live, the quintet, I am front row center in the audience.
Wow.
Right here at the Greek Theater in Berkeley. Front row center. Whatever. That's all I wanted to say. it was amazing to see, and there like that was it. There's some things on that aren't on the record. Wallace Roney had talked to me about Wayne Shorter's telepathic kind of powers on the bandstand, and that's some inside stuff because I don't know what that is to be a trumpet player on the bandstand with Wayne Shorter. But when I was at the VSOP concert that's recorded live, VSOP the Quintet, from what is it, like 77, Brett?
Yeah, 78.
Yeah, 78. Yeah. So there was a moment where the rhythm section was vamping on something. It was just a sustained vamp. It was really mellow. And Freddie and Wayne were not playing. They were just standing a few feet apart, not looking at each other. And out of the blue, both Freddie and Wayne hit this, like a note, a declarative note, just bam. And then Freddie, like he took the horn out of his mouth and he looked at Wayne like he was sort of shocked, and Wayne just sort of smiled at him knowingly. When I spoke with Wallace Roney, he told me about things like that happening on the bandstand with Wayne when he did the Tribute to Miles tour. That Wayne would like ESP things to him, and then he would look at Wayne. Wayne would be smiling at him, and like some out-of-body stuff. So just interesting. I just wanted to share that.
Great. Got a question here from Taylor Hatch. Benny, is there a record you produced that you're most proud of?
Oh, gee. I think any like self-respecting recording artist that is still in process in their life, would feel that they haven't really come to any kind of like personal pinnacle, so to speak. But I was very happy that on the album that I released, that was released a couple years ago on the Sunnyside label called Then and Now, I had women on one of my own albums for the first time, and not for the sake of integration, but because they happened to be musicians I wanted for the record. It was the flautist Ann Drummond and the vocalist Veronica Swift. But that I realized it was my 20th record as a leader, that it had been guys all along. Also, I hadn't had vocals on my own. So that made me happy. Also, it was it sort of breakthrough for me in that being born in 1963 and growing up in the 70s, where the Rhodes, Fender Rhodes electric piano was such a prevalent sound.
Oh, yeah.
In pop music and jazz. Yeah, that I've been wanting to play it for years, but I've been shy to also coming up in that so-called sort of Young Lions era that I did. I'm like, I guess I'm like barely a year younger than Wynton, but I consider him my elder just in terms of his accomplishment. But I'm just saying age-wise, that's my generation, okay?
Yeah.
And I felt at the time there was a sort of purist aesthetic that I've come up with where I was very sort of frightened to play Rhodes on one of my own recordings. I thought people would think, oh, he's selling out. But now I would say that whatever the term selling out would refer to someone not being true to themselves. It doesn't refer to whether or not there's an electric or electronic instrument on your record, or if you're doing something different than you've been branded as doing. It just means being true to yourself. So all that said, I've been wanting to play Rhodes for years. So I don't know if I have any kind of best record, but I was happy just for those personal breakthroughs in terms of production on that album, Then and Now. Thanks for asking, Taylor Hatch.
Okay, let's go back to one of your cool gigs and mentors, Ms. Betty Carter.
Raindrops
Oh, my
and
goodness.
roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up with strings. These are a few of my favorite things. Cream-colored ponies and crisp apple strudel, doorbells and sleigh bells and schnitzels with noodle, wild geese that fly with the moon on their wings. These are a few of my favorite things. Girls with dresses and blue and sashes. The biggest thing on my nose and eyelashes. Sip what winter that melts into spring. These are a few of my favorite things. Dog bites, these things when I'm feeling sad. So we remember my favorite things and then I don't feel so bad. Dog bites, these things when I'm feeling sad. So we remember my favorite things and I don't feel so bad. Don't do la 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 la. Feeling blue. What you mean? Do la 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 la. What winter that melt into spring. These are a few of my favorite things. Dog bites, these things when you're feeling sad. Still remember my favorite things and then I don't feel so bad. Dog bites, these things when I'm feeling sad. Still remember my favorite things and then I don't feel so bad. Still remember my favorite things. So bad. Simply remember my favorite thing. Yeah, I don't feel. Simply remember my favorite thing. And then I don't feel. I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, man. Listening
Goodness gracious.
to chills, it chills up and down my spine listening to her, man. She's just unbelievable.
Oh my, man, she had us whipped into the shape. Goodness gracious. She had us whipped into shape. They don't make them like that anymore. Leaders like that. Oh my God. Wow. And I was just watching that video and the one with Ray Brown. I'm feeling so grateful to have gotten to play with these people. They were unrelenting leaders, you know, as you can see and feel. And what a blessing for a young person that has energy and passion to be able to be in such an atmosphere like that. And man, if you had the heart, they hooked you up. I can't even imagine playing the piano that hard today. I can't imagine my body today at 57. I can't imagine like the impact on my wrists. Oh my God, that's for young folks, man. When you're in your 20s and 30s, like your body can take that kind of impact. Like, as you start to get older, you know, quite honestly, you know, you really start thinking about longevity. Like you want to hang in there, and you know, you don't want to hurt yourself. But back then, you're unbreakable.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I was so thankful that at that stage of my life, I got to be with the greatest leaders I could possibly play with, and like they let me in, and they helped me, but they didn't just, you know, they weren't just nice and coddling. They kicked our ass. I'm just being reminded, seeing these videos of like all the things that are going on there that they just laid into us in terms of our essential attitude, what it is we're doing up there. There's a hunger there, and you bring it, man. And it's powerful for me to be reminded of that. Thanks for playing the videos, Brett.
Yeah, we got a question here. Did Betty Carter ever sing the melody?
She sings becomes the melody.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, another mentor. So how long were you a student at Jazz Messenger U?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, I only played in the band 2.5 years, from April of '87 through late '89. But as far as being a student at Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers U, I feel that from the beginning of feeling so inspired by hearing the band live that I realized kind of my own horizon, that I had to play with Art more than wanted to. I had to. That was the beginning of my, like, you know, receiving the whole experience of Art Blakey U, going to hear the band live and beginning to learn the music, and you get a feeling of the humanity in the band, the way the musicians treated one another, and the music. That's a big part of it too. And so that began for me, I would say, when I heard the band live in '81 at the Keystone Corner in San Francisco with Wynton Marsalis, Branford Marsalis, Bill Pierce, Donald Brown, Charles Fambro, and Boo, they were there for 2 weeks. They had the Monday off. I actually got to play there with my trio at the time on the Monday, and I imagined that on the Monday they played at the Kooumba Jazz Center in Santa Cruz. But at the end of those 2 weeks, they recorded a live album on the Concord label called Keystone 3. And I was so inspired by that band that it really catalyzed my wanting to move to New York as soon as possible, which had been kind of growing in me. And it became my whole purpose at that moment in my life. It wasn't about dating. It was like just playing along with their records, going to hear the band when I could. That was really and truly my thing. It felt like it then. When I think back on it now, it's still the case. That was my whole center. So the education began then, just wanting it so much, and it took me 5 years. 5 years from meeting Art Blakey and getting to sit in with him until I was finally in the band. And when I meet young folks today, I encourage to really conclude as we'd like to do with what bands, what leaders that in fact hire young people and get their recordings. And it's important to have that kind of context, so we're not just abstractly saying, oh, I want to get better. We're actually working towards something. And these band leaders, you know, the band leaders in the videos that you're playing, Brett, excuse me, you're in the house. I think someone's going to grab the phone. They gave us a whole context to apply that passion. And man, it's so important. I realize now for the music to have that kind of strong leadership. We have personalities and egos, you know, of course, always, and talent. There's a lot of talent, but that kind of leadership, that demanding leadership, that's a hard thing to come by now. And I don't have any theories of why that is, but it's very powerful to be reminded of just how the music was played and how the musicians treat each other, and just the whole notion of leadership in jazz and how very important that is. So it's not so wishy-washy. You got kind of a core there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Another question from Taylor Hatch. What was the best piece of advice you've received from any of your mentors? Was there a certain aha moment that gave you an open door to sounding your best?
Wow, it's a great question. I'm only trying. I feel like there have been numerous moments like that. I'm wanting to think if I can, you know, distill it down to one. Above all else, I'm sort of going quickly through my mental Rolodex of those leaders, of those great mentors, and there's so many ways that they taught. Sometimes by not responding to a question, But one theme that I noticed between that Betty Carter, Art Blakey, and Ray Brown, and Freddie Hubbard, actually, come to think of it, they all had in common in working with me and teaching me is the fact that they saw I was sorting through my influences, emulating, different players that I was listening to, many different players, and they all said, "I hear that you like so and so. I hear that you like so and so's playing. That's cool, but I have you in the band because I want to hear you. I want to hear Benny." And all of those band leaders, Taylor, they all had that in common. So in terms of like an actual sort of a tagline that I could give you, so and so said this. I'll have to think on that. But that was certainly a theme, though, however we put it into words, is that sort of like the very purpose of us learning from our heroes is to help us along the path of realizing ourselves. Now, I do want to say that for me, just being true to Benny, I've really never personally had it in my sights to try to become an innovator. I think innovation is a very special thing. By nature, it's rare, and it's what does feel authentic to me, and it's been this way since I was a really young guy, is that I love the way the Cats feel on the records. I love the way Red Garland and Wynton Kelly and all these people sound and feel. And man, if I could sound more like that, if I could play more like that, that's what I want. And I don't know if that's hip to say, or at this point in my life, I don't care. I don't have any question in my mind of who Benny is or what I'm about. I just want to be a better Benny. But I've always wanted to try to kind of reflect some of the sounds of my favorite players as best I can. But I feel like there's an important message my leaders are giving me, like if there's aspects of what they're doing that can help me to realize my own voice and sound, great. But the point is not to just play their exact notes. And we could, pontificate on that, but I think you understand my point.
Yes, absolutely. Question from Carl Woydek. I hope I pronounced that right, Carl. Those in the audience go through emotions during a set of your music. Are you conscious of emotions? Oops, that disappeared. Where did that comment go? Hold on a second here. Ooh. Oh, are you conscious of emotions and changes of emotion during your set? Or do you just play and your mind is empty?
Oh man, no, it's constant emotions. Me myself, yes, I'm an emotional person, and that's what reaches me in music as a listener. Is just a sense of a person telling me how they feel, and just like kind of painting an image of that, telling a story about that, about those feelings, taking me to a place and opening up my emotions. It's very emotional for me, of course. As responsible musicians in the driver's seat, so to speak, we use our minds, and we use sensibilities and mechanics, of course, at all times. But I'm responding to emotions, and hopefully, as an experienced player, I'm learning as I mature about how to ride those emotions, what's really beneficial, hopefully, and applicable to the moment and the situation in the song, and what's something that I can be aware of that's going on, got a stomach ache, what have you, that's actually not part of the music, So if that makes sense, it's extremely sensory, and I think myself and a lot of artists are aware, even without eye contact, of just feeling energy in the audience, if you will, and we respond to that, and it's kind of our responsibility, right? Any artist to just like be in tune with the vibrations of life and what's in the room, and be flowing with that. So I'm feeling a lot when I'm playing myself.
Yeah. Let's go to a couple of your piano mentors. We'll show a little video and talk about. The first is Hank Jones. Someone left a comment. They say, Hank just had that touch. It leaves me speechless.
My God. You know, I have to tell you, while you're playing videos on my end, the audio during the music portions is extremely faint. So I was watching along during this video, and it was a joy just to watch Hank, his movement, the whole mechanism, his entire body, man. The angle of his forearms, just man, just a consummate master. How beautiful it is that there's video of him, watching Hank or Oscar Peterson, or Horowitz. It's an education just to observe just their physical being with the instrument. It's so graceful and just so charming, and his eyes handing off back to Joe Lovano. Just what an elegant man.
Yes, absolutely. I just posted on here something you posted on Facebook last week about Hank's song list. Could you say
Yes,
something
sir.
about this?
Yes, sir. Well, Hank was born, I believe, in 1918, Pontiac, Michigan, I believe, if not Flint. And his first influences, his first piano influences, and this is affirmed through my friend Ted Pankin. He interviewed Hank very extensively. In Hank's own words, his very first influences were Earl Father Hines and Fats Waller. And he heard Teddy Wilson before he heard Art Tatum. Those are some of his early influences. And the roots of his music, he's a fine classical pianist, but in terms of the American popular music, which is largely what's reflected in this list here that he let me photocopy, and this is a partial list, of course, because this man knew probably thousands of songs. And, as you know, Brett, Hank played for many years in studio orchestras, and as his close colleague Ray Brown pointed out to me, and Hank was the pianist in Ray's first trio. Ray said that when you play in all those orchestras and all those different situations like Hank did, he said all sorts of things are going to rub off besides his jazz roots. And so yes, I was on the occasion of Hank letting me look at the list, and he allowed me to photocopy it. Was that we were on a tour together in Switzerland and Spain in the late 90s. I'm pretty sure it was 1998 that Jordi Sunyol produced. And I got to play solo piano before Milt Jackson and Hank Jones as a duo on this tour. So you can imagine me just getting to listen to the two of them. I was in heaven, and one day we're checking into a hotel, and I saw his song list, and I just asked him on a whim. I really didn't expect that he'd say yes, but I asked him if I could photocopy the song list, and he said, "Well, of course, certainly." And so I've had this list all these years, and I've known that it's a great thing, but it's felt sort of strange to me keeping it to myself. I had it right on my shelves while I was teaching at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor for 4 years, and mentioned it to students. I've mentioned it to friends. No one really, people just said, "Wow, that's cool." They've reacted, but no one's really wanted to look at it. And so I just thought, hey, at this moment in my life, I know I'm not an old man, but as you get older, you just start thinking about what you can do, and I feel that it's important for me to try my best with my limited vocabulary to try to just I don't want to say anything that sounds too audacious, but I want to just try to give something back to this community that's been so good to me. And in this moment in my life, it feels like kind of telling some stories, not to be sensationalistic, but maybe to share some of the essence of the kind of love that I and my colleagues and my peers and contemporaries, like Ralph Moore, were being shown by our great leaders when we were coming up, people of my generation. I just want to talk about that now in these changing times. And
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm digressing, Brett. Get me
It's
back
okay.
on
It's
track.
okay. No. Okay, here's the deal. We usually stop about now. Okay, have you got another 15 or 20 minutes?
Oh, absolutely. It'd be
Okay.
my great pleasure.
Because we didn't get to Oscar Peterson and, a lot of other
Yeah.
stuff. But we get a lot of questions. Another from Taylor Hatch. Knowing that you have such a strong sense of integrity and tenderness, what helps keep you inspired to remain true to yourself as an individual?
Oh, thanks for the beautiful question, Taylor. A very provocative question. I was a very happy kid, and as a young man, very focused, even tunnel vision in a sense. And then over the decades, a lot has happened, and at this time in my life, I'm finding a peacefulness in observing my own thoughts and attitudes and outlooks about other people, because peace and wholeness and fulfillment, they're inner things. And any sense of unrest or imbalance I have is very much an internal situation. Somehow over the years, I had learned to associate unrest and imbalance with other people. So-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. So, to answer your question, Taylor, in the present, I'm finding a peacefulness in observing those kind of thoughts and just kind of like gently forgiving myself for having formulated false thoughts of others and letting go. And as I let go, I think our true nature as animals is peace. Peace exists, with removal of things that are not. So if that's not too abstract or metaphysical, that's my vibe.
Here's a comment question from Kevin Scott Bilberry. Hey, Benny, Calvin and I were wondering if you know the release date of your book. We are planning on buying a copy. Are you writing a book?
I most certainly am. Well, hello, Kevin. Hello, Calvin. Thank you for being interested and for asking. So I actually have a lot of content right now, essays I've written, and most of which I've posted on Facebook, especially in the last 2 years. And I've been encouraged by kind of people like Kevin and Calvin to put them together in a book, and it's something I very much want to do. And so in this moment, I'm working with my collaborator and friend and editor, Ted Pankin, in looking at this the amassed writing done so far, looking at what's there and what presents itself in terms of the structure and form and shape of a book. Because on one hand, my wanting to write and feeling compelled to write and having things that feel meaningful to me to write about is ongoing. On the other hand, I do want to put this together into a book, and I like the idea of being able to put it out within the next couple of years. So we're looking at, because I do, as I said, have a lot of content, look at what kind of holes are there that I've yet to write about. It's because it seems that I've written a lot about my history leading up to the 21st century, and then personal philosophies, if you will, about things that I'm considering at this time in my life. But I haven't really talked about my own kind of history, my own autobiography, during the past 10, 15, 20 years as much. So that's something I've yet to write about. And all this to say, Kevin, that as I fill in just some essential holes, I very much am wanting to put this together and get it together in the next couple of years. And thank you for your kind reminder that there's interest. Greatly appreciate it.
Oscar Peterson.
Goodness gracious. What a beautiful thing to play for us. Thank you, Brett. My God. Man, that's so slick. Did you see how he grabs the handkerchief with his left hand while he's playing, and because you don't hear that when you're listening to the records. You don't see that because the music's going the whole time. And he's so cool. And he's taking his time wiping his forehead, and he's burning the whole time. My God. You know, this really inspires me seeing that video to kind of reinstate that Oscar Peterson trio setup on stage that we had with Ray Brown, of having the bass, drums, and piano as close together as possible. I haven't been a fan of like the fact that the drummer and bassist are behind me, just because I'm turning this way so much. They think you don't have to as the pianist, but I talk to my other pianist friends a lot. We crane our necks. But man, that closeness, being able to actually feel each other physically like that, there's no substitution for that, man. So, wow. Thanks for playing that, Brett.
Yeah, Oscar Peterson is one of my favorites, always has been. I was, excuse me, only saw him once at Lenny's on the Turnpike. It's like 66, around there.
Sam Jones.
Sam Jones and Bobby Durham was on drums at that time. And, you know, Oscar Peterson, what can you say? Well, look.
Oh, my God.
We have burned through an hour and plus here. I want to play one more thing as we go out with Benny and Michael Brecker. But, Benny, I hope you'll come back.
I would be so honored. And, Brett, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, people, for listening in. I so appreciate what you're doing. And just wishing you the best of health during this time and always, Brett.
Same to you, Benny. And
thank you, friend.
I'm very proud of you, from that guy I met in Bish's apartment to the man you became and the musician became. It's very special. So we're gonna go out here with Benny playing with Michael Brecker. Join us on Wednesday for Scott Robinson. Please take care, everybody.